have, a couple of things I want to outline. These are the things we're going to be talking about in this live. I was listening to a virologist, somebody who studies viruses and does this for a living, and I was just inspired by the information I heard, because what I do when I have information, I filter it through my perception, like we all do. And I think what I like to share with people is my perception of information, because everybody's giving out information, but it's the perception of that information that dictates how we take action, right? So I was inspired by the things this virologist was saying and just seeing the nature of viruses. Viruses are crucial to our existence here, and so I wanted to break that down and talking about that, because we often tend to look at life very black and white, good and bad, right? And this approach oftentimes doesn't leave room for embracing things that can be beneficial to us. So, many years ago, before our true understanding, or before we got a greater understanding of, let's say, for instance, bacteria, we thought that all bacteria was bad, and basically you get bacteria and you can get sick, or you can get a cold or an infection or whatever, right? So we classified bacteria as bad, and that was our perception of bacteria for a long time, until we started looking and doing research into the microbiome of humans, which means the intestinal flora, the gut of humans, and realizing that there's actually bacteria that has a positive impact on humans, that there's actually bacteria that is responsible for producing hormones and for regulating the immune system and for all types of processes that is built in to our immune system. So that shifted our perception of bacteria. It no longer became a polarized bad, but now it became a spectrum of good and bad, beneficial and non-beneficial bacteria, right? So right now, what we're experiencing with viruses is the very same phenomenon. For many years, we were just looking at viruses as something bad, looking at viruses as something to be stayed away from, right? But now the new research is showing that viruses are actually crucial to humans and human health. And in fact, without viruses, life can't, on planet Earth as we know it, can't sustain itself. So this is what I wanted to speak about today, the virome, right? What is the virome? Well, you probably heard of the biome, the gut microbiome. The virome is the viruses that comprise a certain part of the body. So you have a gut virome, you can have a brain virome, virome for different parts of your body, which is the compilation of viruses in your body. So what does this mean? This means that everybody listening to this right now is already infected. You already have viruses within you. Viruses exist within the human organism. This is a fact. There's no dispute to that. We know, we understand, and we can study people and take samples of people and see that these viruses are in fact within us already. So the understanding is that viruses evolved alongside humans, and actually that humans and other organisms in the environment use viruses to evolve. So viruses play a role in the evolution of species. So what they do, let's just talk about the breakdown, the basics, right? What is a virus? A virus is a non-biological living in the classic form of, there's certain qualifications to call something living, right? So it doesn't really fit the qualifications. So there's dispute about whether are there living beings or not, but there's intelligence there. The intelligence is that viruses go into the cell. They invade the cell, and then they program the cell in such a way where that cell is no longer reproducing itself, but now it's reproducing the virus. So the genetic material that the virus inputs into the cell, that's what the cell is replicating, right? So now that cell, instead of creating more cells like itself, is creating more viruses. More virus is spreading that virus out into the ecosystem, wherever it's at, whatever medium substrate it's in, whether it's the blood or different organs and stuff. So there is a way for viruses to replicate themselves into humans. So, for instance, let's talk about if a virus implants into a reproductive cell, like of the reproductive organs, like an egg cell or a sperm cell, that virus can be replicated, and actually the genes from that virus can be implanted into the cell and then passed down into the descendants of that species, whatever it is. So if it's a human, the humans can pass down these genetic traits. So what a virus does, it cuts out a piece of the genetics and it puts its own genetics in there. So through time, literally our genes are inheritance from viruses. So that's why we have like retroviruses within us, which is things that we've kind of evolved with over long periods of time to kind of be a part of who we are. So this is the point that I'm trying to make with this, is that viruses are supposed to be in us. We're supposed to have viruses, and this is the natural harmony and order of the world, of the existence that we experience, is that viruses play a role. They actually play a role in our health. They actually, so the mind shift is to stop thinking of viruses as something so polarized as just bad, but to realize that they serve a purpose, just like everything else in this existence, right? That's one thing I always talk about: purpose. Stop looking at things that things are good or bad, but what's the purpose? What purpose can a virus hold for us, for our body, for our species, and then for our ecosystem, for our ecology? So the mindset that we operate from as humans, as a collective, is typically that we disconnect from the natural world. We see the natural world as something separate from us, and the more we disconnect from that, the more that perception becomes real, right? So we no longer see nature as something that we are or that we integrate with, but something that we go to visit on special occasions where we want to go hike, or that something that we just study from afar, but we're not a part of. See, and to me, that is the mistake. Not the mistake, but that's the perception that science has, and that's where they operate from. They operate from, we're not part of this. So of course they do things that go against, and that oftentimes have repercussions on the collective that is not beneficial. So, viruses in nature, they actually are symbiotic. They work with species and they have a relationship, just like everything else in nature. You don't think that the earth has a relationship with the sun, or that the plants have a relationship with the mammals? So why wouldn't you think that viruses have a relationship with bacteria, your gut flora, and eventually your health? Your health is regulated by these organisms as well. It's all integrated. So we like to look at things compartmentalized. So we look at virology as one component of biology, or the study of science, which is the observation of nature. But it's more integrated than that. It's all connected. These pieces rely on one another, and when we take apart one piece and study it by itself, we won't truly gain understanding of it until we see how it incorporates with the rest of reality, with the rest of the natural world. So viruses in nature, in fact, okay, so animals in nature. Do animals have viruses in nature? Do animals in nature have viruses? They contain viruses, right? Do they? Because the natural world is continuing its business as usual. As you can see with what's going on, if you were in the natural world, nothing has changed. Nothing is stopping. The wheels aren't stopping for what's happening to humans. Birds are still chirping, they're still making nests. Mammals and fish are still swimming. Everything is still going on as usual in the natural world. But humans, we like to think that we live apart from that natural world. So we live in a construct of our own mind, created, separated, alienated from the natural world. So in this natural world, we're allowed to feel like it's a different reality that isn't has nothing to do with nature, right? We're allowed to feel like nature is something apart from that. The reality is it's not. It's an illusion. The idea that we're apart from nature is an illusion. It absolutely is and will always be an illusion. And the more we come to grips with that, we have to reconcile that reality within ourselves to embrace and be able to live in harmony with these things. As long as we see bacteria and viruses in nature as something apart from us, we will always struggle because we rely on the natural world. The natural world is what sources and gives us everything that we experience. So it's what I always say. The more we run, the faster we have to run. You got to pick up speed because over time you become weaker, and these viruses, they can keep going. Nature is the persistence. Society, civilization, humankind, how we're moving right now, that's the resistance. It's resisting the persistence of the natural world. That's why we got to cut back the weeds, along the side of the highway, because nature's still going to continue regardless, of what we're doing. Nature's just sitting alongside like what are y'all doing? Like, y'all building these buildings, y'all trying to isolate and sterilize your environment. Like, okay, that's a strange concept in nature, to try to separate yourself from your environment. Because what they discovered is that animals in nature, they actually have viruses. Within their own bodies, they have viruses. The only difference between the animals in nature and humans is that these animals are able to live perfectly healthy lives with these viruses in them. So, AP's blow dry master. So what that says is that due to the connection of animals in nature, they live in harmony with these viruses. When you step out of that connection with nature, then viruses can harm you. Then viruses become detrimental to the species. AP's Queen Azine. So that is the clue right there. When he said that, I was like, damn. So it is literally our disconnection from the natural world that has us susceptible to the natural world, to viruses and things that exist in the natural world. So the more we disconnect from the natural world, the more we're going to suffer the repercussions of it. So they say sterilize everything, right? Put bleach on everything, sanitize everything. What is that doing? That's further disconnecting the human biology from the natural world, because your immune system has a very complex functioning system. It has memory. It has the ability to recognize threats and to neutralize threats. So if it stumbles on a threat that it can neutralize, it holds that capacity to be able to, in the future, neutralize that as well. So when these assaults come, it starts storing up a reservoir and a defense system so that it can defend itself and be healthy and keep you healthy, in these times like this. But the popular culture of the world is telling people that we need to sanitize everything, that we need to be in sterile environments, isolate, right? And this is just nothing merely but a temporary band-aid, because viruses mutate, and year after year they're going to keep coming back. So what we've observed with these things like SARS and some of these viruses that have come, they don't just come in one wave, they don't just come one time, but they come back in another wave, two or three waves. So there will most likely be a wave of this again with what's going on now in probably the winter months, to come. So this idea that we have to hide and run away every time that comes seems kind of backwards to me, because I operate from the mindset that how about we just align ourselves with the natural world, and then we can live in a way that's symbiotic with these organisms. Do you want to always constantly be on guard, having to do all these things, protect yourself, or would you rather just live in a way that's harmonious with these organisms? Symbiotic, meaning that you get something from them and you give something back. So yeah, it's temporary, and it's a band-aid, but what's the root of the issue, and how can we solve the root of the issue? So, and it's complex, it's complex because of human psychology. We instinctually don't want to suffer, and we don't want things to happen, bad things to happen, right? People see that there's deaths occurring. People see that people are transitioning, dying, however you want to state that, and they fear, and they don't want the same thing to happen to them. And so we developed a psychology around life, and particularly the part of life we call death, that we aim to avoid. As a society, we do not confront it. We do not confront death. We lock it away in hospitals, in rooms, and we close curtains so that you don't have to observe or believe that this thing is real, that there's something that happens. When people get to that stage in their life when they're getting closer to death, we put them in homes, we put them in places where we don't have to look at the natural process of life taking place. So everything that society is doing is basically trying to avoid the unavoidable, to avoid the very source of what feels life. In order for things to compose and construct and come together, there must be a decomposition, a destruction. There must be death, what we call death. So that is one component of it, is the human psychological component of coming to terms and to grips with reality and the processes of nature, right? Is to just understand that at a very simple level and to embrace that. I didn't make up these rules. Like, I didn't come into this reality saying like people should die or people have to suffer. It's just an observation that I made. It's just a reality that I walked into. But the difference is that I choose to embrace it. I choose to accept it and live in tune with that reality, rather than trying to put on blinders and pretend that these things aren't happening, but find and create, if there isn't already a culture of the mind that says that this is the way things are. That's why I'm always saying at peace with the way things are, because the way things are is this. How I'm describing the way things are is the natural process of life. That's the way life is. And you can be at peace with that, or you can try to go against that and resist that. There's a lot of work to resist that, because it's an ongoing struggle. Your reality is always going to show you the truth. You can choose to ignore it, or you can want to try to overcome it, but there's laws that govern this reality that we just can't bypass, that we're actually subject to, and that it's our responsibility to actually live in tune with these laws. So as people who are disconnected from the natural world, we develop the ability or the idea that we can resist these laws, that we can somehow overcome, and it might appear, right? It might appear that we are overcoming these laws, that we are bettering nature, that we are being just overcoming nature, right? And just dominating it. But that's an illusion. It's just a temporary illusion. But what we see, and this is the difference, I think, between the culture, the dominant culture of the United States or of the world, which is very fragmented and only focusing on what's happening now, and between the cultures that operated, the traditional cultures, the indigenous cultures, is that they thought in terms of 7 generations ahead. How will our decisions and our actions affect 7 generations ahead? Because they understood that what they did was going to have an impact on themselves in the form of their children. And this is what they fail to realize, that sometimes we fail to realize, that you don't live forever by preserving this form of this body. You live forever by having children, by passing down your genetics. That's how you live forever. So if you leave a world that's fucked up for your descendants, you leave a world that's fucked up for yourself, and you compromise your eternal existence. So that's crazy, right? Like, your children are you. Like, people think that you have to live forever in this form, but you're really just passing down your genes. You're really just passing down your legacy. That's information. so that's why I want to get into information is viral in its nature. It's a virus. It comes and infects people's minds, and the right information only needs to get a hold of the right cell, the right person, the right organism, and that organism can spread that information. It doesn't matter if the information is true or if the information is false, if it's real information or misinformation. The only thing that matters is that this information get a hold of the right cell. So, because we hear information, right? Look at the way people reacted with information. It wasn't nothing in their immediate reality. Like if I sit here outside, right? If me and my family are just here sitting in Hawaii in a cabin, living our life, taking care of the property. If nobody came and told me that what's going on is going on, I would have absolutely no clue. If I didn't have to go to the grocery store to get food and see what the protocols that they're putting in place, I would have no clue. So what's happening isn't because of your immediate environment, what's going on, something that you can observe, but of information that is being told to us, information that that's being infected into you, into your mind, into your subconscious, into your being. This information is penetrating you and causing you to react differently. So now people get that information, right? They get infected with the information, and then what do? They go boom, 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 regurgitate that out to the rest of the world, and to their friends, and start spreading that information, that misinformation. It doesn't matter what it is, it's just information. So this is how this thing is moving, right? This pandemic and this panic that it was ensued because of it. Yeah, poor connection. Was due to information that was implanted. So that's what we were saying. People were scared of catching the virus, but they were already infected. The fact that you allowed yourself to feel the emotion of fear was in itself the virus. That was the true virus. Just the information that you allowed to penetrate your being and that you felt in that moment as a reality for yourself, that was the virus. Now, cough, sickness, all that's just extra shit. It's your mind that is infected. It's the way you think. Because if that's infected, that's just going to ripple off into the rest of your reality. Everything else, what you eat, how you think, what you do, and how you move in life, is all going to be regulated by how you think. So because they gave us this information, they affected the way we think. And thus they affected the way the world moves, the way society is structured. Even the whole economic system, look how it's being restructured right now because of information. Because this virus has already infected people. It's deeper than the physical, it's deeper than the cough and the symptoms of it. The true symptoms of this virus are the mental psychology and the perception of life that we've inherited from this information. And that's why I think that those of us that have a perception of life that's in alignment with nature need to share that perception, because that is how we restore the minds of those who have been infected. That's the antidote, is information that puts them back in alignment and comfortable in their own skin again, comfortable with the idea that this is the way things are. It's perfectly natural, and the more you align yourself with the natural world, the more you create immunity for yourself, the more that you build up a tolerance to the things that we so much fear. So it's our alignment to this reality that we have to realize getting in tune with nature is bigger than just saying it. It's an actual biological, physical, psychological phenomenon that happens and occurs when you do that. You know, it's deep. It's deep. You know, and so the virus is already in most people. Most people were infected a long time ago. They're waiting for symptoms to pop up, but they're already infected. They're living like they're infected. They're thinking like they're infected. The world is acting as if. So That's why I said it's the job and the purpose of those that live in tune or strive to be in tune with nature to share that perception, that perspective, because we didn't make this up. We didn't make the rules up. We just live in by them. We just accepting the rules. We're saying this is the way nature is, so be it. I will live in accordance with nature. I will live in harmony with nature. I will try not to overthrow the balance of nature, because I know and I understand that this process that I'm experiencing called nature is perfectly calculated, because it got us where we're at now. It has me here in health, and the only way to continue that legacy is to live as we have for the majority of our existence, or for what we know. This is a new experiment. This is what I want to say. This is an experiment. What you're experiencing, what we were born into, is an experiment. We were born into a world that stemmed from somebody's mind, from somebody's ideas. So now Bill Gates wants to vaccinate the whole world, right? That's an idea from a person. What's his perception now? His perception might be coming from a financial perception. He might be interested in financially being, reaping benefits from this. Or he might have the idea that maybe the population needs to be reduced. All these ideas are coming from people's perception. So what my energy goes to is to nature. What does nature say to do in these instances? What is the path of nature? What is the way that viruses naturally interact with us? So that is the clue right there, is the key. These people are never going to be able to give you an action or a perception that's going to be in alignment with nature, because that's not how they see life. They see nature as a force to be overcome. They see nature as something to be beat, something to be won. They don't see themselves as a part of nature. They don't think that they're an organism living in an ecological environment that has an effect on nature. They don't see that. They see themselves apart from nature. So I do see that there is a reality that no matter how much I try to avoid it, it's always there. And that you have to know which side you stand on. Do you stand on the side that is in tune with nature? Or do you stand on the side that tries to overcome and get around nature? It's very simple. It's not good or bad. It's just resistance versus persistence. Do you want to be in tune with what will persist forever? Or do you want to be in tune with what resists the natural way of life? That's why I said nature is the way. The true path is nature. It's not nothing that that I can make up to you. It's not my philosophies, my own views on life. It's just is. It's just when you sit out there and you experience it and you live it, that's what the way is. That's the path. And so I'm only sharing my perception, but I'm only sharing my ideas and how I see the world. But I can never truly communicate something that's meant to be experienced and something that is going to be different from person to person. But all I can say is that to me, nature is the key. When I look into that system and that source, I can see and trace back myself into the most simple life form. I can trace myself back into a single cell organism. I could trace myself back into my ancestors, back into other species. I could trace myself in the tree of life as far back as I want to, when I really meditate in that space, because I integrate with the world. I integrate with the natural world. And to me, that is the most sacred thing. And like I said, that's my perception of the world. And so, but I do see that there is a side to be picked. Like, it's not that I'm trying to create tension, but it's just, you can either live in tune with nature or you will go against it. And so there is repercussions for going against nature. We might not see them now in the short term, but in the long term we will suffer even more than when we think we're suffering now, because like I said, it's just a snowball effect, that the more we try to avoid it, that the more we have to keep trying to avoid it, and the worse that it gets. So the faster we get back to our root, we get back to our source, our connection to what gives us life, the faster we will have great health, robust immunity, that our children will be born healthy without the need for any medication, without the need for any antibiotics, that we will live in a way that respects and honors the earth, that we will live in a way that is righteous, in a way that our children could live, and that is sustainable long term. And that is my plea to the world. That's my plea for myself, that I can tune into that reality, that I can make that and manifest that within myself. And it's just an ongoing journey, right? But it's this information that I'm transmitting right now. This is a virus, and this is the good kind of virus. This is the kind of virus that you want to integrate into your genes. This is the information that you want to integrate into your genetics, into the way you move and operate throughout this life. Take this with you. Nature is the source. You are a part of nature. You can either live in tune with nature in the natural way, in the natural order of life, or you can go against it and experience the resistance and the repercussions of that. No bad, no good, just what it is. So realize that. You can have the experience that you want to have. Which experience do you choose? You can choose the world that you want to choose. You want to choose the natural world or the man-made world that's an illusion, that's temporary, and that's only really capable and possible because of the natural world, which is the original world. It's the source that lets civilization even exist. Like I said, it's an experiment. It's all up in the air. Our understanding of these things is primitive at best, but our ability to embrace these things and live in harmony with them, we already know it's possible. That's how we got here. We already know it's more than possible. It's the way we should be living life. As for what they're putting out there and suggesting, I don't know anything about that. They don't even know anything about that. It's just an experiment. So you can be part of that if you want. But like I said, there's already a world that exists. And it's to some of us calling our name. And so yesterday I had like a beautiful experience. For a big part of my journey, I often have resisted the spiritual component. I always look at life very tangible and in a way that's very easily to understand, like information wise. But I had an experience last night that it was hard to reconcile with the tangible mind. And I realized that I have been chosen for a path, that I have been chosen for a reason, and it's like, whether I like it or not, this is the way I'm supposed to be moving and my purpose in life. So I could either resist it or I can embrace it, so I'm moving into the space of embracing and allowing this reality to unfold within my own self, and just realizing that there's some things that I'm not really going to be able to articulate or even make sense of with the logical mind, and that's okay. That's okay, and I don't need to explain to anybody that, it is what it is. If you understand the experience, it was just like an outer body experience and a connection to a source of information that I don't know where it came from. A source of information that it was just the information, the source. And in that moment, it just, every information, all my questions were being answered. It was just streaming through me, and just this information, this funnel of information was coming through me. And I realized it was a full moon, and the full moon's in Scorpio. So the energy was just super intense. And so for the last 5 or 6 years, I've just been going through this process of transformation that I've been resisting, And so talking with my friends, they gave me clear understanding of that. And so now I'm able to work through that and embrace that energy, to embrace that spiritual path. It's like a lot of the things that I have chosen to embrace, I didn't even know why I did it. Like, you can see I changed my name, but Quetzal, wild, obviously, because I just feel like undomesticated, you know, like that's the kind of life I want to live, undomesticated. That's what wild means. But Quetzal is this bird that you see here, and this bird, for a long time, it wasn't able to be domesticated. Basically, this bird, when they try to domesticate it, it would die, or it would just kill itself. It would kill itself because it was just that bent on not being domesticated that it would just kill itself. So it's just a beautiful bird, and it was very sacred to a lot of the cultures in Mesoamerica and coming out of Mexico, because the tail feathers were really valued, and they were used for, you know, some of the royalty and stuff like that. But just this bird is just a sacred bird. And so I had an experience one time where I was walking down the street, and I could have swore that I seen this bird flying through the air. I seen the long tail feather flying by, but I know that that bird doesn't live here or exist here. It's barely even exists where it exists, but in Central America and Mexico. So this name has been popping up, and it's just, these dots are being connected for me, and I feel like things are just happening to me. And sometimes that's how life is. Like, we want to control everything, but I feel like there's a certain path that just happens to, and it's just laid out already beforehand, something like destiny, you know, what we think of as destiny. But at the same time, we have the ability to influence a lot of things that do happen and how things happen. So it's both. You can create and manifest, and you can also, and it's also dictated beforehand. And that's how I really feel about the situation. So that just inspired me that I just got to come and teach and share what I've been given, the information that I've been given, and just to know that that's okay. You know, like, I'm not trying to argue with anybody or dispute anybody. This is just how I see life and what's been given to me. And I think if it can bring anybody value, then I'm happy to be of service, you know. So I'm just in a beautiful space, and I'm glad that, you know, whoever watched the live, you here. And so I'm going to open up the room for Q&A. If anybody has any questions or want to come in or discuss anything, we could just talk about it and chill. But that was basically the what I have for you guys today. Ooh, it's a beautiful day. If you guys could feel the breeze, like, this is why I came to Hawaii, because when it's not raining 24/7, there's a breeze that comes through so consistently. It's not even like you woke up.
It was just raining.
It's not even like it comes in every once in a while. Like, it's just a consistent breeze, and it's just so refreshing, man. Like, I love it. But yeah, oh, this was from my story. Someone said, do you like cooking? The questions from your story, I didn't know they popped up here into the live.
Oh.
Yeah, I like cooking. I like working with ingredients that remind me of where they came from, which is nature. So that's the way I look at cooking, as I look at it as a source to reconnect you back to the natural world, you know. So working with ingredients that are natural, wild, that are just closer to their original form, I always like to embrace that concept. So just the transmutation and making food usable. And, you know, I think that the culinary art was devised because we just get bored. Like, okay, how many times can you eat something in its state like that without doing it to anything before you're like, oh, what if we like chop it up or add some lime to it, and you get creative with it. So I think that cooking and the culinary arts is just an outlet for creativity with our food. But yeah, how's everybody doing, man? Someone said, can living in Hawaii be affordable? I hear from others it's very expensive. Yeah, it can be affordable. It can be free if you want it to. If you allow that situation or come across that situation. We get that question a lot, so it's hard to explain to people because most people come from the mindset of like you have to make a certain amount of money to live in a certain place, but there's other ways of living. There's other ways of connecting with people, and I think that's important. The most important thing, that you connect with others, that you connect with people, because people are going to give you all the opportunities that you could need. There's people out there that need you and what you do and what you offer, and that they're willing to reciprocate that with maybe a living situation, or maybe some type of arrangement like that, where you don't have to do it through the classical mindset, you know. Oh, this thing turned off. Hold on, yeah. This thing just flipped on me. Oh, I think the battery died. Okay, I'll just hold it. I haven't charged it anymore. Blowjob Master said, I am good. My business is thriving. My mindset is evolving. I am connected to like-minded people, and I am enjoying staying home. Yeah, it's a wonderful perspective to have, and just being thankful, you know, for the situation. There's so much to be thankful for, you know, like we can focus on the things we don't like, but there's a lot to enjoy from what's currently going on. Water Womb Wisdom said, you spoke about living eternally by having children solely in the sense of birthing humans, or creative endeavors that you birth and raise as well. Absolutely, yeah. It's just all part of you, right? Anything that comes out of you, whether you make that and embody that into like a philosophy or a way of life, a lifestyle, or a culture, you can pass that down as well. And it doesn't even have to be to your children or your genetic descendants necessarily, but you can pass down yourself in a way, in multiple ways, you know. So yeah, and you can do both with your children. With your children, you go, that's your genetics. So no matter what they be taught, they still carry a piece of you. But then on top of that, you can compound that with information and knowledge and just philosophy and a lifestyle that really fully embodies what you're about, you know. Sherry said, can you make detailed videos of your cooking creations? Yeah, I really want to get into just more videos like that, where it's just shorter videos and it's just more detailed. I got so much on my plate, y'all. I do a lot of work for a lot of people, and I help a lot of people with graphic designs, and I help a lot of people with their content creation and stuff like that. So it's just trying to balance everything out, you know. But I definitely, you know that that's something that I should be doing, is just making videos that are more legit, you know, and just more concise and just down to the point with details. Because like going live is one thing, but then when you make a video consciously and chop it up and just make it super digestible, that's another thing. It just requires a lot more time. My favorite drink with sugarcane is sugarcane and liqueur. That's the best. Sugarcane and liqueur. If you ever get a chance to try that combination, do so, and you will thank me. But yeah, so that was the live for today. It just you know, I was inspired, and I just felt like our perspective, you know. And I also want to say this: science is an observation of nature, but what we do with that information depends on our perspective or our perception. So this is what science does. It observes the natural world, but then the actions that it wants to take are dictated by a perception that perceives itself outside of that world. So its actions are different from somebody who perceives themselves as a part of nature. So I take the science from the natural world and I filter it through my perception. So my actions are different. I accept the science, but I act in a way that's in accordance to the natural world, or I strive to, at least, right? That's the goal. I know I don't want to be like self-righteous, like I got everything together. Like obviously, it's a journey back. You know, it's a long walk back home, and I just think it's multi-generational, like something that you have to pass down to your children. And so, but that walk back home is so crucial. Just being on that walk and seeing your house up ahead, you know, and knowing that it exists is just something there, something comforting about that idea. Yeah, so just it's the way they act on the science that they observe. That's what I'm not in alignment with. I'm in alignment with the natural way of life, just observing nature and being okay with it, being okay with the way things are, and striving not to get in the way of that, but striving actually to live in tune with that and respect that, and to honor the earth, honor ourselves, honor our human beings, humankind, and that energy, that characteristic will be passed down, and that's the only way to make life sustainable, is to pass down a way of life that is sustainable. So most of us, if we ask ourselves, is our way of life sustainable? Do we think it's sustainable? Most of us would say no, for sure. Like, you can't confidently say yes, and if you do, then you probably not aware of the repercussions of what you do. Like, where does the stuff you put in the toilet go? Who takes care of the trash that you put in that bin, and that garbage truck comes and picks it up? What happens to it? Who takes care of that? Where does your food come from? All these things, is that sustainable? The way you live and thinking that it just comes and pops out of thin air and there's no repercussions, that's foolish. Come on, man. The more we outsource these responsibilities to other people, the more we suffer repercussions, and we also become slave to the system. We become slave to whatever gives us life. So what's giving you life right now? It might be your job, it might be the government. So until we take that responsibility back into ourselves, then we won't be a slave to whatever giving us life, because you have to be a slave to something, but you want to be a slave to the source, a slave to directly to the source. Cut the middleman out. The government, these jobs, it's all the middleman, but you start harvesting your own food. Like I said, that's why I believe in wild caught fish and game, because I think it's the path of least resistance and the quickest and simplest path to a sovereign lifestyle. And also, growing your food, if to supplement that, that's the path that I foresee myself in the future going towards. Like, we tend to the land here, we got food growing here, but it's so much more to be explored and to be learned and to be done, that I'm just excited about life in that respect, but I see that my purpose is different. Like, my purpose is for sovereignty, for reclaiming back that responsibility for oneself. Other people aren't really in alignment with that. They're more so trying to be healthy or just be part of something, but I don't care for that. I think health is a byproduct of your lifestyle, and I think the lifestyle that I want to live will generate health as a byproduct. So, Blowdry Master said, I think adversity brings us closer to who we really are. That's absolutely a definite fact. It will expose the deeper parts of ourselves that we don't always get to see, right? Because when things are comfortable, things are nice, we tend to only show and see a part of ourselves. But when we're very much challenged by certain situations, that's when we can retrieve a part of ourselves that tends to be hidden in the crevices of our ego, our personality. He said, these times make me aware that I am really equipped within to handle anything that comes my way. Yeah, I feel that, because if you can conquer your mind, if you can have the right understanding, you know that any situation that you're placed in, that you will survive, that you will thrive. And that alone is the thing that will bring you peace in any situation, and you'll be able to navigate any situation when you have that understanding, that be at peace with who you are and know who you are, know your purpose, and you carry that anywhere you go. See, I feel like I can go anywhere in the world because I know my purpose, because I know, and I'm at peace with who I am, And so any situation is just going to be I'm going to be doing that there, So it doesn't matter where you put me. It's just an understanding that you can't take away. So that's what we should strive to have, and that's why we're always saying, study yourself, know yourself, embrace yourself, because that will get you into a mindset and to living a life that nobody can take away from you, and to embracing something that nobody can take away from you. K Will 2000 said, are you going to start your own tribe? I already have my own tribe. I feel like I am my own tribe, and I feel like my family's my tribe. I feel like the people around me are my tribe, and I feel like people who think like me are my own tribe. Even if we don't have anything exclusive or like share the same space, it's just about, you know, people who strive to live a certain way and who resonate with one another. That's who your tribe is, you know. And sometimes there's members of your tribe that don't even know they're part of your tribe until they find you and they realize it, you know. So that's what the internet is for, right? Just trying to put out that signal into the world so that your tribe can find you or you can find your tribe. So we're just all sending that signal out, and just like everything in nature is sending a signal. You know, the fruit is red and it smells amazing because it's sending a signal for a purpose. The reason bacteria produce smells is because they're sending a signal. Why you think shit smells? Because there's something in there that's sending a signal to the flies to come get it. They're sending a signal to its environment to interact with it. So you send that signal too. You send that signal out. You're a organism that's part of nature too. You are nature. And if you want something in life, you can send that signal out and put it out there, and you will attract, you know, not through any magical force, but just by basic virtue of nature and the laws that are very apparent to me, at least. But I got a couple more minutes here. If y'all have any more questions, I'm going to go and wrap this up and just do some work. But I want to thank everybody who was in the live, who watched, and who just participated. You know, I appreciate y'all, and thanks for watching and being a part of this. And I hope you take the information that we talked about with you and embrace the path. All right? Until next time, stay balanced. Peace.